Well, howdy, physics sleuths and inquisitive souls. Welcome to Dynamic Gravity. So, today we're going to go over anti-gravity effects alleged from rotating superconductor experiments that have been done from various experiments. This is a very interesting subject. Whether you believe in dynamic gravity or general relativity, the fact that people are making claims that they can influence gravity with a superconductor is it's impressive. You know, there's something going on, but as the old saying goes, with extraordinary claims must come extraordinary evidence. And so far, that evidence does not appear to be there. So let's dig into this, kiddos, and let's see if we can't figure out if this is real bullshit or what's going on here according to dynamic gravity. Is this incompatible with it? Everything. Let's dig in. Let's go down this rabbit hole. So, superconductivity. It is essentially when you get like materials that have like a certain configuration of electrons in the outer valence shells, when they get cooled to a certain critical temperature, which is, you know, depending on the material, usually very, very low, like very close to absolute zero, like the boiling point of like liquid hydrogen or oxygen or something. They do this phenomenon called like Cooper pairs, electrons, and it's where the electrons pair up and they move around that way. I don't know how the whole Cooper pair things goes. I haven't really done a whole lot of research into it, but they say this is the reason why electricity has zero resistance in a superconductor when it's actually being used. See, here's a nice little video of one, as you can see. They're pouring the liquid hydrogen on it or whatever, liquid oxygen, and as it cools down to a critical temperature, it will now do Cooper electron pairing, gives the electricity zero resistance as it's swirling around inside that, and then it will displace out all magnetic fields and electric fields, and then essentially levitate in an external magnetic field because that magnetic field provides electricity. And basically, is my understanding is the more force you put on it with an external magnetic field, the more current that's induced inside of the superconductor, and hence the more force it pushes back on in perfect unison to the exact amount, which basically makes it levitate. It's pretty interesting, actually, if you think about it. I believe it is called the Mesner effect. Yeah, phase transition from temperatures and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Mesner effect. It's placed in a weak external magnetic field. Is cooled to transition temperature. The magnetic field is ejected. It's very important. We got to remember this. This is by far the most important bit of information we are going to go over today. That when a superconductor is superconducting, it expels the magnetic field and electric field. And apparently, like, normal conductors will expel the electric field. This is news to me. I just learned this a few days ago. I don't know how that works. Never heard of that before, but I guess it's a thing. But expelling the magnetic field is a completely different thing, and only superconductors can do that with the Mesner effect. And it says it does not cause the field to be completely ejected, but the field does penetrate the superconductor, but only a very small difference, like a millimeter, like very, very small amount is essentially what's going on. And then you get, these cool superconductors that will levitate, and if you poke holes in them, they become a type 2 superconductor, which allows the magnetic field to go through the holes and then lock the superconductor in place so it doesn't move around. Pretty cool. Here's a nice little PDF kind of explaining various things of it. How the magnetic field is trapped, I guess, before it is cooled. And then once it is cooled, the Mesner effect takes in and expels the magnetic field from the interior. Yeah, this is definitely not expelling it, but like right here is. You can see it's just the magnetic field just goes around it. Like it's repelled by it. And that is because, like I said, when you put a superconductor on another magnet, it will induce a current in there. And that current, kind of like eddy currents, I'm guessing is the way my mind processes it. And eddy current is like, if you drop something, down like a copper, pipe, it will go really slowly because the eddy currents are swirling the exact opposite direction, applying counter magnetic field force. Seems to be something very similar to that, only slightly different, probably because it's only on a cooled system like the superconductor. So this is interesting, though, because in the early 1990s, I think 1992 is when Eugene Podkoff did his experiments. And then he did another paper in, I think, 1996, which is a little bit longer, explaining some of the stuff. And yeah, he basically was doing a superconductor in a lab, whatever, and someone was smoking a cigar, over in Russians, like, but they were in Sweden or Finland or something, and they saw that the smoke was rising at a different rate as it went over the superconductor. And they did a little experimentation on this and found out that it appears to be that the superconductor shields gravity going directly above it. Anything above it will experience less gravitational forces than anywhere else in the room. And the effect is small. It's small. I believe that Podkoff and the other scientists that did it, Ning Li, claimed it was only like 2 or 3%. But I don't know, man. There's so much misinformation about this whole thing. I can't even trust anything at face value with this. And there's a lot of scientists that claim that they tried to reproduce this effect in laboratories and they couldn't, right? So it's definitely suspect. And it gets even more suspect that these claims are actually reality. Yeah, it's like here they say attempted verification. They said they tried, and they claimed, oh yeah, well the universities of Toronto and Sheffield, they reproduced this. But no one came forward or wrote any papers about it or acknowledged it or did anything. So it's all very suspect. It's very, very suspect. Here's, I believe, the actual paper he submitted in 1992 was this one. This date is in 2001, but that might be when I added to the archive. But yeah, experiments showing possible, kind of weak word there, anomalous forces between, ceramic superconductors and objects, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so, I don't know about this one. This one, I don't know. But anyways, here's the paper. It's a really long, detailed paper. Like I said, a lot of people tried to replicate this, and they couldn't. The room temperature, the voltage range was 100 to 450 kilovolts. That's a lot. That is a lot of voltage. Like, that's enough voltage that probably could kill you. Probably talking about a lethal amount, depending on the amperage, but that's a lot. So maybe, I mean, it's definitely weird. Estimated with the voltage 2,000 kilovolts. My God, how do they even get? I mean, if it's a microamp, I guess I can see it. You can get super high with Ohm's law. Voltage if you take down the amperage, but man, 200 or 2,000 kilovolts that's an extraordinary amount of electricity, I'll tell you what. So he's talking about serious voltages here. Maybe this is one of the issues, is that a lot of labs trying to reproduce this just did not have the equipment necessary to provide this high of voltage, I guess, on the plates. And then if you do, I mean, it probably would destroy the plates too. It's pretty weird, the superconducting plates, whatever. But yeah, it's very interesting. This paper, it's very long. I haven't read it. I've just skimmed through it. I mean, it's like, Jesus, what, 20 pages long? 26. Yeah, here we go, references. So, I mean, it's a solid 26 pages long, this paper. I mean, he really laid it out, a lot of stuff. But in the conclusion, experimental apparatus shown that pulse of gravitational-like force freely propagating through physical media can be generated by a dual-layered blah 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 under pulsed electric current. It's very interesting. Unfortunately, a lot of people have tried, like I said, to verify it, and no one's been able to. At least no one's claimed to be able to, except for one person. But she wasn't verifying it. She was doing it herself. She might have actually beat Eugene to the punch. We'll go into her in a second. But I just want you to hear this. Just listen to how absurd this sounds, okay? I mean, I have an open mind, but when you start getting out there in left field, I can't help but, my bullshit meter start pinging. But listen to this. What do you think about this?
Able to deform metal plates with a thickness of a couple of inches, and
yeah,
they are able to make holes in concrete walls. So we are not speaking about some lightweight substances, but concrete wall is something very solid.
Yeah. And so he's basically saying that, hey, when I pulse this for a very brief second of time during the pulse of the electricity, I'm generating a gravity beam that will actually rip through metal that is inches thick. Just rip it in half like it's nothing, and will penetrate through very thick concrete walls as if they're nothing. Basically, he's saying he created a gravity gun that's more powerful than pretty much damn near anything we've ever created so far. I mean, yes, you can have more energy from like a 155 shell or something coming out of a Paladin or something, some tank shell. But keep in mind, if this truly is a gravity gun, it travels at the speed of light, and it goes for a very long ways. It's just superior. But just the fact that he's making these claims of this amount of energy is being translated into like a gravity pulse. My bullshit meter is just pinging, guys. I can't I can't believe that. That's just too sensational. Not without some evidence. And this guy doing the interview asked him, he asked Eugene, he's like, hey, man, did you take any pictures, any video, like anything? Do you have anything for me other than your word as a possible, what is it, a person that can't help themselves but lie all the time? Person, whatever. But and of course, this guy is working in a lab with hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment, on a gravity pulse that is more powerful than anything that's ever been created before, and he doesn't have even a picture of anything, nothing at all. It's very suspect, guys. I can't. It's hard for me to believe that. But there is Ning Ling, and she is an American scientist, I think University of Alabama or something, who claims, I guess in 1991, did this pretty much the same experiment. Only she I don't think she claims that she got any gravity gun or anything like that, but she claims that she was able to get up to 3% reduction in weight on anything above the superconductor. And apparently she came out or released her research or did her experiment like a year before Eugene did his. Which, if this effect truly is on the level like they say it is, then I guess she would be the discoverer technically. But yeah, it's very weird, man. Yeah, like after she did all this research, University of Alabama in 1999, she left the university to form a company, AC Gravity LLC, and this is what she named this effect of gravity shielding with superconductors was AC gravity. She claims it like a new form of gravity, or you're creating gravity in a different form than what the Earth does when you're doing these experiments with electricity on these disks. So once again, this is really interesting. You have another person at the exact same time who is coming out with very similar claims to Eugene, and she was so sure of it, she left her job and created her own company, which was given like a lot of money. Look at this. In 1999, to found the company AC Gravity LLC, AC Gravity was awarded a U.S. DoD grant for $450,000 in 2001. That's a lot of money. That's like $1 million in today's money. To continue anti-gravity research. The grant ended in 2002, but no results from this research were ever made public. So, yeah, and then after that, I don't know. No one really knows what happened to her. She kind of disappeared, and she died in 2021 at the age, she died July 27th. Here we go, July 27th, 2021, at the age of 79. But this is what you got to remember. The DoD, DARPA, the United States government, they had enough faith in what she was saying that they gave her like pretty much $500,000 grants, and that's just like free money. That's not a loan. That's a grant. That's just like, hey, take my money and see what you can do, So this is, I mean, I don't want to say this is good evidence, but this is evidence that there is something going on here that's legit. And as extraordinary as the claims that Eugene is making, I don't know, man. I just don't know. I think here's the paper that Ni Ling and Jitor released 1992, September. I don't have it, unfortunately. They want me to pay for it, and I'm not going to pay for it just to read it. There's really not much there. A lot of people try to replicate this and apparently have not been able to do it. So it is what it is. But yeah, it's very interesting.
That's the
And
gravity modification.
here's her talking about it, at some conference in 1997 before she created her company, and she's saying, yes, I did this in the lab and it created this new thing called AC gravity, and it has this effects. And
We can change gravity, anti-gravity, or increase gravity. Also, we can change gravity in any direction you want. That is my theory talk about.
Yeah, I mean, you see, she's making some pretty radical claims too. She's saying, hey, I can change the direction of gravity any which way I want it to go. Now, I don't know exactly how she's referencing this, but she's pretty convinced, that she's onto something dealing with gravity. And like I said, the DoD was too. And you talk about Eugene, as crazy of his claims were. Boeing, they're like, hey, if we can, do any sort of gravitational shielding for our jets, that's going to translate to, a ton of, money, profits from fuel, from, flying around the world in jets all day long every day. And so, they confirm, they did the research. They claimed that they stopped the experiment before they got to the point, I guess, where they could be conclusive about it. I've heard some reports say they found something there, but it was inconsistent. Other reports said no, they have nothing. Apparently, they claimed that like I said, this is just on some forum somewhere, so I don't know if I, trust this too hard. But, this guy claims that, hey, look, man, they're trying to work something. They basically, some here, they say that, they basically do an open call to work with Eugene. They said, hey, look, man, we don't know if we can make this work, but, we'd like to pay you to come here and make this work for us if you can. And nothing ever happens. So once again, it's just, there's so much misinformation about what's going on with this whole thing. And I don't know if I can believe much of what is being said about any of this issue. But then again, there is the fact that if dynamic gravity is correct, which I do believe it is, yes, there absolutely should be some sort of shielding effect with gravity somehow. If you are doing superconductors, at least could be potentially. Depends on how the virtual photons work. We'll get into that in a minute. Let's continue on. I found this really intriguing. The Defense Intelligence Reference document. I don't know. They're saying unclassified. I don't know. This could all be bullshit. This could be someone. Apparently, it's made in March 2010. The role of superconductors and gravity research. I don't know why this document was made or who made it or if it's legit, but it does seem like a pretty good explanation. If you want to know more about the stuff, this really breaks it down pretty good. Talks about gravity waves, and LIGO and stuff and how they're detected there. I'm going to do an episode on that coming up soon because that's confusing for a lot of reasons. Gravity waves. There are no gravity waves. Not a dynamic gravity. There's no gravity waves, but there is things going on, and I'm going to go into that later in another episode of this. Here we go. Gravito-electromagnetism. I guess that's like a buzzword, that kind of just says that, gravity is somehow related to the electromagnetic force, which according to dynamic gravity, it absolutely is. But what really impressed me with this, what caught me off guard, is this is like 2010 allegedly, but they're claiming, like, let me see, is it here? Huge analyze the copper Kazaniki connector, which holds that gravity is nothing other than the slight difference between forces of Coulomb attraction and repulsion. However, none of these researchers appealed to the special form of matter constituting superconductors. So this is what really blew me away is these guys are saying, hey, a decade ago, we believed that gravity is just the slight difference between forces of Coulomb attraction and repulsion. Well, Coulomb attraction is basically the electromagnetic force. It's the attraction between the proton and the electron. That's dynamic gravity. So these guys are basically saying the foundation of dynamic gravity is absolutely true, according to them anyways. They don't know how, though. They can't figure it out. They don't need math to prove it. They don't know how it all works together, though. I figured all that out. Me and me alone. But it is interesting to me. I knew I was definitely not the first person on the planet to have this thought that gravity was related to the electromagnetic force. 100%, there has been at least 1,000 people before me that have had that thought. But how many of them actually worked it out and worked out a viable way that could be the case and create the math to deal with that? As far as I can tell, none. Not even Nikola Tesla. Nobody. I'm the only one. Just me. And I forgot, but if you new to this channel, whatever, you have not yet read it, read my description or my paper and the description of this video and all my videos. And it's only a few pages long, and it will absolutely just lay down everything about gravity to you that you need to know about how dynamic gravity works. And I believe if you read that paper word to word, you'll be a master. You'll be a true gravity master. So I thought that was really interesting. I also have this historical timeline here, which goes off into, a lot of Podnop's experiments, and I think Ling's in here too. There's a lot of information here. It's really crazy. Yeah, Tor and Ling. So now how much of this is accurate, I don't know, but if this indeed is an official government document of some sort, and they have a ton of references, then, a lot of this information is probably really good then and legit. If this is an official document, I don't know if it is though. You can search for it if you want, these titles, see what you think about it. Here's some more about Boeing investigating the possibility that planes may be set free from the pull of gravity. They're trying to do these experiments, and it's conduct tests on a number of gravity devices. Devices do not actually break the laws of physics. We feel there's a basic science that exists for this. But see, and then Boeing Aeronautical Engineering, whatever systems, we haven't found anything yet, said yesterday. And does it say 2002? Yeah, back when they were spending money on this. So, they were convinced enough to spend a lot of money on this, but when it comes, they couldn't. Yeah, dude. See, look, students at Sheffield University who tried to replicate Dr. Podkoff's work failed to find any weight reduction. This is one of the universities that Podkoff said successfully replicated his results. So here we are, read an article saying that they couldn't do it. One side has said they did not duplicate his precise experimental conditions. It would cost about $100,000 to set the experiment up just as he did. So pretty expensive. Obviously it seems like they don't want to give up on that yet, but they couldn't do it. They couldn't figure it out. They couldn't get any measurable effect. So I don't know. Take that for what it's worth. So you guys are probably wondering, okay, well then what's going on here? How is it possible that we can have superconductors that are defeating gravity? It's impossible according to general relativity. I'm telling you that right now. It doesn't exist. But according to dynamic gravity, this could be a real thing. So we got a superconductor, right? Okay. And our superconductor is chilled, all right? And when it gets chilled, we know this. We know that virtual photons, which are coming, propagating the electric force and the magnetic force, are all going around it. They're just going around it, right? And they're just not penetrating into it. I mean, maybe a little bit, but not very much, maybe a millimeter, like the research says. So, according to dynamic gravity, the carrier particle for gravity is the virtual photon. But as I've explained in my last video on virtual photons, this has not been confirmed. This is just purely in my head. It doesn't exist right now, but I believe this is probably how things work because it makes sense. You got two different sets of virtual photons that are being emitted. One that we're very accustomed to, the one that's being emitted from the electron. They create the electric field and magnetic fields that we're very aware of. We measured those to the umpteenth degree in every way imaginable. And then you have the other set of virtual photons being created from the proton, or more to say, the up quark. And these protons are emitting a virtual photon that is almost identical to the virtual photons from the electrons in every way, except it's of opposite polarity. So they, instead of repelling each other, they attract each other. And with this, you can now get what we observe to happen, which is an attractive force between positive and negative entities, and a repulsive force between like entities. You can do that if the proton and the electron are emitting essentially the same virtual particles, just photons, from heat. Heat is what makes them do that. The heat makes them move, and the movement makes them release it. I can't tell you much more than that, but we do know this from, the Einstein-Bose condensate experiments, where when we cool matter down, once it reaches like absolute zero, it just loses itself. It can't keep itself together because it's not able to move around. It doesn't have any heat to make any virtual photons to emanate what we call gravity. So it just falls apart. So now they can measure this. They've measured that this superconductor, when it's all cold and chilled, is expelling electric and magnetic fields, meaning it's not allowing the virtual photons of magnetic fields and electric fields to penetrate through it. And to give you an idea of how insane this is, there's nothing else that we know that can do this. I mean, maybe another magnet, you put two magnets together, that might, repel, stop the field from going through the magnet, because it's putting force and forcing to go around. But having something that will allow virtual photons through it, and then when you cool it down, not allow it, is pretty much unheard of. This doesn't exist, and there's really not that many things in the world that can stop a virtual photon from traveling through it to create the force of gravity or even magnetism. Magnetic field goes through anything. It goes, through trees. It works in vacuum of space. It works, through walls. It works through everything. I know metals can act as a shield for magnetic fields because they're like utilizing them, but it's really weird. But the point is, what's important to know, kids, is that if this superconductor, when it reaches its critical temperature, expels all the electric and magnetic fields, it's not letting the virtual protons go through it. So we could also deduce that probably, now of course, according to my theory, the virtual photons from a proton are going to have an opposite polarity than the ones from an electron. But if it's going to affect the virtual photons of the electric force, then it is definitely going to also affect the virtual photons of the gravitational force. Now, how? I don't know, man. Nature is a real weird, freaky thing sometimes. It can do all sorts of weird things that you'd never expect until you just see it, and you got to figure out what's going on. And some weird forces working together. But if it's blocking virtual photons from going through it, and they can't, it stops at a wall right here, and it has to go around it or be deflected or wherever to another direction. It's also, you would think, hey, the virtual photons, from the proton, the gravity might also be deflected in this similar way. They might not. It might be an opposite effect. They might be attracted to it. So instead of just going through it, they might, instead of going around, they might go right to it, like bloop. And then you have like a bunch of things just funneling through. You have gravity just funneling through this superconductor, which then would give credence to Eugene Podkoff's experiments where he claims that he was able to produce a gravity beam. Hey, man, according to dynamic gravity, it is entirely possible. I'm not shitting on him for, excuse my French, I'm not pooping on him for, the claims he's making. I just don't believe him because he has zero evidence and he's done nothing with this. And like Boeing reached out, hey, dude, we'll pay you a lot of money, man, if you could make this work. A lot of money, millions of dollars, you'll be rich. And he's like, I'm good. I just want to sit at home and go fishing. Yeah, cool story, man. I'm wondering if you actually ever did it. So, I mean, that's essentially exactly how you would expect superconductors to be able to manipulate gravity. I couldn't tell you, honestly, with so little information, if you would expect it to create a gravitational shield, where it's blocking all these virtual protons. And so any space up here, like above the superconductor, you would have an absence of, these virtual photons. They're going to come all around it, but they're not going to be able to go through it. And so this area going up for a bit, you would have an absence of virtual photons, meaning you would have an absence of gravitational forces. Or if it's the opposite, where because like I predict that the virtual photons of the proton are of opposite polarity of the electron, and then it would probably work more like a funnel, and then this would be more like a beam weapon, like Eugene Podkoff says. So does this work like Ning Li says, or Ning Li? Yeah. where she says, you know, hey, it's shielding and it's reducing the gravitational forces? Or does it work like Eugene says, like, no, it's a gravity beam and I can blast through walls with it. It's so powerful. It could be either or at this point. I don't have enough information to definitively say, but I can tell you this: both are possible. I don't know if I would say both are possible simultaneously in the same universe, but both options are plausible. I could not tell you which one it would be because it depends on the nature of virtual photons, which we don't know because virtual photons as of right now are nothing more than a math trick to help us create fields so that we don't have spontaneous action at a distance, which is impossible by the known laws of physics. So, I hope I did an adequate job of explaining this. Oh my God, this is going on so long, 40 minutes. I'm sorry, guys. I didn't mean this video. I wanted it to be a very quick video. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Yeah, if you want me to do another video on this, I will try and dig a little deeper into it. But I feel like I've dug pretty deep into this and hit close to rock bottom as far as we can go for right now. Remember, when someone claims that superconductors do funky things with gravity, that is predicted by dynamic gravity. That is predicted. So it is what it is. And I wish you all a good day. Bye.
Like, subscribe, submit.